The screen glowed in the dark cabin. Jared sat alone, a warm drink in one hand, clicking through the listings on the station's legal marketplace. He wasn't proud of what he was doing, but he was tired. Tired of talking to walls. Tired of hearing nothing but the buzz of machines. Out here on Outpost Theta 9, humans lived far from Earth, and even farther from real connection. The screen blinked. Another listing appeared. Species: virulent female condition. Low response. Docile. Trained. No known speech. Price: 2,000 credits. Last owner: deceased. The photo showed a small alien girl, maybe just above 5 feet. Skin soft lavender. Long white hair. Her head was down. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't looking. Just sitting, arms crossed over her lap like she didn't exist. Jared stared at the picture for a long time. Most profiles tried to sell the companion smiling faces, flirty descriptions, promises of pleasure or company. But this girl didn't even try. She looked more like a ghost than a person, and something about that made Jared stop. He clicked Confirm Purchase. 3 days later, a transport drone dropped her off outside his cabin. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She didn't look at him. Wrapped in a thin gray cloak, she stood silently as the drone lifted off and vanished into the clouds. Jared stood by the door, unsure what to say. I'm Jared. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. Just come inside. It's warm. She walked in without a word. Inside the cabin, it was quiet, just the hum of the generator and the soft clicking of the air filters. Jared led her to a small room he had cleaned for her. A bed, soft blankets, a heater unit, and a shelf with some clothes and a few books. He pointed. This is your space. You can rest here. No one will bother you. She stood by the door, still not speaking. That night, she didn't eat. She didn't sleep either. Jared checked on her once and saw her sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor like she was waiting for something, maybe punishment. Maybe orders. He didn't give any. The next day, Jared made breakfast. He cooked some soup, left a bowl outside her door, and returned to his workshop. It wasn't until hours later that he noticed the bowl was empty. He smiled a little. Progress. On the third night, Jared heard something. A soft whisper. He paused at the doorway, holding a mug of tea. Slowly, he stepped closer. The girl was standing near the window, arms wrapped around herself, eyes looking at the stars. Her voice was almost too quiet to hear. Thank you. Jared froze. He wasn't sure if he imagined it. Did you say something? She turned slightly, then nodded, just once. Thank you. For not touching me. Jared's heart dropped into his chest. He didn't know what to say. No one should have to be thankful for something like that. But her voice, it wasn't scared. It was surprised, like it had never happened before. You don't have to thank me, he said gently. You're not here for that. She turned fully this time. Her eyes were glowing slightly in the dim light. Not bright, not hopeful, but alive, and that alone stunned him. He walked back to the kitchen and sat down. This wasn't what he thought it would be. She wasn't just another listing. Not a silent servant. Not a companion to ease the silence. She was someone trying to remember what it meant to be alive, and somehow she was thanking him for it. Jared dropped a spoon. The small sound echoed through the cabin like a gunshot, and from the other room, she flinched. He saw it. She didn't scream, didn't run, but her shoulders tightened, and her eyes darted toward the noise, wide, alert, like she was back in a place where sounds meant danger. He bent to pick up the spoon slowly, making sure not to move too fast. It's okay. Called gently. Just dropped something. Silence. Then, after a long moment, her voice came soft from behind the door. Okay. The days passed slowly after that, Jared went back to his regular routine, checking the generator, cleaning filters, repairing drones. But now there was always a second pair of eyes. She watched him, not in fear exactly, not in curiosity either, more like someone learning a new language through body movement. Like every little thing he did was being recorded in her mind. He'd glance up and find her sitting in the hallway, half hidden behind a beam. Not speaking, not blinking much, just watching. Sometimes she sat near the heater, curled up like a cat, staring at his hands as he worked on machines. Sometimes he caught her trying to copy his movements in secret, like when she saw him stir coffee and then mimicked it later with a spoon in water. She never asked questions, but she wanted answers. That was clear. One evening, Jared left a book in her room. Nothing complicated. Just a short human story, something with pictures and simple words. The next morning, the book was on the table. Open. Pages turned carefully, and beside it, the spoon she had copied him with was resting perfectly upright in an empty cup. A message. He smiled without realizing it. Later that night, as he repaired a broken mining drone, she stepped into the room quietly. He didn't look up, but he spoke. "You can come closer. I won't mind." She hesitated, then sat a few feet away. Her voice came, cautious but clear. "You build things." He nodded. "Yeah, mostly machines. They break a lot out here. Did you build this place?" He smiled. "Some of it. The structure was here, but I made it livable." She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I've never seen someone fix anything. People broke things. People broke me." Jared's hand froze mid-motion. He turned to her. Her eyes weren't full of tears, but they were heavy. Tired. Too tired for crying. "I'm not here to break anything," he said. "Least of all you." She stared at him for a long time. Then she asked softly, "Why?" He didn't have a perfect answer, because someone should have said that to you a long time ago. That night, he left 2 bowls of soup on the table instead of just one. She sat across from him for the first time. Didn't eat much, but she stayed. Her eyes never left his face, not in fear now, but in study. As if she was still trying to believe. At this strange, quiet human who didn't yell, didn't hurt, didn't order. He didn't even ask for anything. And that, more than anything, made her uncertain and drawn. She still didn't sleep much, but she started moving more. She walked around the cabin when he was away. One morning, Jared returned from outside to find her wiping dust off the main control screen. Something no one had asked her to do. "Old habits," she muttered. "Good habits?" he said. One evening, the power flickered. Lightning cracked in the sky above Phaetonine's hills. The storm was loud. She ran. Jared found her in the storage room, curled up beside a crate. She was shaking. He stepped forward slowly, crouching beside her. "It's okay. Just a storm. Nothing here can get you." Her voice trembled. "Last storm, I lost someone. They said it was my fault, so they took things from me." He didn't ask what. He just sat beside her, not touching, just present. And when the storm passed, she whispered, "I believe you now." He looked at her. "Believe me?" She nodded. "That I'm safe here." Asterisk, the light in the workshop buzzed overhead. Jared was under the drone again. Grease on his hands, tools laid out in a line. A tiny wire had snapped inside the motor, and he was trying to rethread it before the storm season arrived. His head was deep in the panel when he heard soft footsteps behind him. He glanced over his shoulder. She was standing there, Vika still quiet, still cautious. But she wasn't hiding anymore. "Need something?" he asked, wiping his hands. She stepped forward, holding a folded cloth. "For your face," she said. It was the first time she'd offered something without being asked. He took it slowly, nodding. "Thank you." But she didn't walk away. She sat down on the floor next to the drone. For a moment, it was only the quiet hum of the cabin. Then her voice, soft, but more steady than before. "Do you hit slower than the others?" Jared froze. He turned his head toward her. Her eyes were wide, almost innocent, but behind them, there was pain. The question wasn't a joke. It wasn't confusion, Dot. It was memory. A memory she couldn't unsee. "What do you mean?" he asked gently, even though he already knew. "I just wonder," she said, her voice shaking, "if you're slower when you get angry, slower than the others, or if you hide it better." Jared sat back on the floor, his chest heavy. He looked at her, truly looked, and realized she wasn't afraid of him now. She was preparing, bracing for something she believed would come eventually, because it always had before. "I don't hit," he said slowly. "Not slower, not faster, not at all." Vika stared at him. "You mean, you haven't yet?" "No," he replied. "I mean, I don't, not ever." She looked at the wall, her face unreadable. "I didn't know humans could be like that," she whispered. "Kind. Most are," he said. "Just, maybe not the ones you met." Vika didn't answer. Instead, she picked up one of his tools and studied it like a weapon. She held it carefully, then passed it back to him without a word. Then, in a voice no louder than a breath, "Once, I fought back. I was punished." Jared's fingers tightened on the tool. Not from anger at her, but at whoever had made her this way. Made her afraid of peace, of help, of kindness. "You're safe here," he said again, firmer this time. "You keep saying that," she replied. "And one day, maybe I'll believe it." Later that evening, Jared cooked something special stew with real herbs he'd grown in a tiny hydroponic tray. He set the bowl in front of her, then turned to leave. But Vika picked up the spoon. She ate one bite, then two. He sat down across from her quietly. After a few minutes, she asked, "Did you live alone? Before?" He nodded. "Yeah, long time." "Why?" He thought about that. "Some people hurt others, me? I just didn't want to be hurt anymore." She tilted her head. "So you understand." Jared looked into her eyes. "I think I do." That night, she didn't sit by the door like usual. She sat at the edge of the couch, her hands resting calmly in her lap. She didn't flinch when he passed by. She didn't stare at his hands anymore, like they were weapons. And when the cabin lights dimmed, she whispered something before going to her room. "Thank you for not being like them." Jared didn't answer. His throat was too tight. In the dark, he sat alone in the workshop for hours. He hadn't meant to change her life. But maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what was happening. Not because he did anything special, but because he did nothing cruel. And to someone like her, that meant everything. The knock was too loud for this quiet place. It echoed through the metal walls of the cabin. Like thunder. Jared looked up from the workbench. Vika, who had just begun to relax enough to hum quietly, went silent. Her eyes widened. Her body froze. 3 slow knocks came again, this time harder. "Stay here," Jared said calmly. He stepped to the door, checked the screen. A transport ship. Civilian markings. 2 men outside, tall, armored, armed. Not soldiers, not law. Something worse. Private enforcers. He opened the door just enough to speak. "Can I help you?" The taller one grinned. "You've got something. That belongs to our client." Jared didn't move. "Everything I own is registered under my name." "Not her," the man said. "The Varellan girl." Jared's eyes narrowed. "She was marked abandoned. I paid for her legally." "Paperwork was incomplete," the second man added. Her original owner had debts. Our client bought the rights. She's his property now. Behind Jared, he heard movement. Vika had stood up. The taller man smirked. We don't need trouble, human. Just bring her out, and we leave without a mess. Jared didn't flinch. She's not going anywhere. The taller man's voice turned sharp. You want to break contract law? That's fine. We'll come back with authorization. You'll lose your license, your outpost, maybe even your citizenship. Jared didn't answer. He stared at them until they finally stepped back and walked away. The transport lifted off 5 minutes later. Inside, he found Vika hiding under the table, knees pulled to her chest. They came to take me, she whispered. He knelt down. They're not taking you. They always come back, she said. No one ever says no. Jared's jaw tightened. Well, someone just did. She looked up at him slowly. Her lip trembled. Why? Because you're not a thing, he said. You're not property. And I don't care who they think owns you. You're free here. Her breath shook. They'll return. With more men. Let them, Jared said. They'll learn what a human does when someone tries to steal what he protects. For the rest of that day, Jared worked in silence, adding lockdown codes to the airlock, double sealing the doors, prepping his drone defenses. Not to hurt them, but to stall them. Delay them. Give her time to heal. Vika didn't hide anymore. Instead, she followed him from room to room, helping where she could. She didn't ask questions, but she didn't leave his side either. That night, while they ate together, she asked, Do you know you could get in trouble for this? I know, he said. And you're not scared? He looked at her. I'm more scared of letting them win. She sat back in her chair. Everywhere I've lived, she said, I was passed around, sold, swapped, like a tool that nobody cleaned. I'm sorry, Jared said. Everyone said, it's just how things are. He nodded. That's the excuse people use when they don't want to change anything. She leaned forward. But you, she stopped, her eyes wet. You're the first one who said no. And then, softly, almost like a prayer, she whispered, Thank you for choosing me. He didn't reply. He just reached across the table and gave her a small nod. Not ownership, not control. Just quiet respect. And in that moment, she smiled. Not fully, not brightly, but enough to prove something had shifted inside her. Outside, the storm clouds gathered again. But inside the cabin, she felt safer than she ever had in her life. Because for the first time, someone had said no for her. Asterisk, the generator sputtered. Jared hit the override switch again, but the power flickered once more, dimming the lights across the cabin. Vika stood nearby, arms wrapped around herself, watching every movement. You said this place was safe, she said softly. But the lights don't agree. He smirked. It's an old outpost. Safe doesn't always mean perfect. She didn't laugh, but her lips twitched slightly. That was new. Later, while Jared worked under the generator casing, Vika sat on the floor, knees drawn up, watching his hands. She had started doing that more lately, sitting close, not speaking much, but clearly studying how he fixed things. Jared's hand slipped, and he hissed as a sharp wire pricked his palm. A small drop of blood welled up. Vika's eyes locked on it. And dashed slowly. Cautiously, she reached out and took his wrist. Her fingers were light, cold, trembling just slightly. But she held him there, not in fear, not in panic, not in concern. You're hurt, she whispered. Jared blinked, surprised. Barely, he said. She stared at the drop of red, then looked into his eyes. Where I came from, she said. If someone bled, it was because someone made them. Jared said nothing. She touched the wound gently, careful not to press too hard. And then she said something he didn't expect. You bleed slower. He raised an eyebrow. That's a compliment? Vika nodded. Yes. And then finally she smiled. Not a small one. Not just polite. A real, glowing, innocent smile. It hit him harder than any threat ever could. Later that night, they sat together by the heater. The storm outside made the walls hum, but the fire inside kept them warm. Vika curled up on the rug, eyes closed, her head resting on a folded blanket. Jared thought she'd fallen asleep, but then she spoke. When I touched your arm earlier, I felt warm. He turned toward her. You mean the heater? No, she said, opening her eyes. I mean, you. She sat up, her voice thoughtful. I've been touched before. Pulled, grabbed, shoved. None of it felt like this. Like ... Safety. Like kindness had a shape. Jared didn't know what to say ... so she said it for him. You don't treat me like a thing. Because you're not, he replied. I used to wonder, she whispered, if I'd been born broken. Like maybe I didn't deserve softness. Jared shook his head. You were just around the wrong people. Her fingers reached forward again. They hovered, then rested lightly on his arm. I think I want to stay. Jared blinked. You're already staying? No, she said. I mean choose to stay. Not because you bought me. Not because the system let you. But because I want to. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You're free to go. Or stay. Every day. That won't change. She smiled again. And this time, it reached her eyes. In the quiet that followed, Vika picked up a book and curled on the couch. Jared went back to the bench, but his heart felt different. Lighter. He wasn't alone anymore. Not really. Because now, she wasn't just surviving. She was beginning to live. And it all started with a single touch. Asterisk, the message came during breakfast. A sharp beep from the compad lit up the cabin wall. Jared frowned and walked over. Veka watched from the table. Spoon paused in mid-air. He opened the message. Notice. Unauthorized retention of alien property. You are summoned for hearing by the Colonial Registry Authority. Charges. Violation of ownership transfer law. Jared's jaw clenched. He had known this might happen, but it still hit like a punch to the chest. Vika stood up slowly. They're coming again, aren't they? Not yet, Jared said. They're calling me to explain first. Her voice was calm, but tight. They don't care about explanations. They want control. They want to remind me I don't belong to myself. Jared didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. The hearing was scheduled through HoloLink's standard procedure for remote outposts. Jared stood alone in front of the camera, hands steady, face calm. On the screen, 3 officials sat behind a desk. One of them, a woman with silver badges, spoke. You are in possession of a Varellan female acquired under incomplete contract. Our records show that her original registration was never officially cleared. This violates interspecies property law. Jared said nothing for a long moment. Then, she's not property. Another official raised a brow. That's not for you to decide. It is when the person you're talking about is standing right here, Jared replied, and stepped aside. Vika entered the frame. She stood straight, quiet, her pale hair tied back neatly. The official frowned. Miss, are you here of your own will? Yes, Vika said softly. Were you coerced in any way? No. You understand that legally. I understand the law. She cut in. I also understand fear. The room on the screen went silent. Vika's voice didn't rise, but it carried. I've been sold, hurt, broken, over and over. Every time someone said, it's just policy. Every time someone signed papers saying I was theirs. She looked straight into the screen, but not him. She stepped closer to Jared. He didn't lock me up. He didn't use me. He didn't own me. The official tried to interrupt. Miss, the law. The law was made by people who never lived like me, Vika said. But I'm here now. And I'm not asking to be owned. I'm asking to be heard. Silence. For 10 long seconds. No one spoke. Then the woman in silver cleared her throat. We will consider your testimony. The screen went black. Jared let out a slow breath. Vika looked up at him. I've never spoken like that before. You were amazing, he said. She hesitated. Do you think they'll let me stay? He smiled, placing a hand gently over hers. No matter what they say, you already chose to stay. And to me, that's what matters. 2 days later, the final message came. Case dismissed. Subject granted protected individual status. Not property. Not transferable. Free. Vika stood in the sunlight, just outside the cabin. It was the first time Jared had seen her walk barefoot. In the grass, arms open, head tilted toward the warm sky. She didn't need permission anymore. And when she turned to him, eyes bright, smile gentle, she said something that he would never forget. This isn't just a shelter now. This is my home. He stepped beside her. No, he said quietly. Our home. And for the first time, her hand reached for his, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Jared packed a bag, not because he was leaving, but because he wanted to give her the choice. The hearing had cleared everything. Vika was now free, recognized, protected, and unchained from any contract. That meant she could go anywhere in the colonies. Join a new city. Start a life among her own kind. He didn't want to stand in her way. So he packed a bag and waited. Vika stood by the cabin door, her fingers resting on the old metal frame. She looked out at the distant hills, sunlight glowing soft across her skin. You're packed, she said quietly. Jared nodded. I figured you'd want the place to yourself. A clean start. No obligations. She turned to look at him, expression unreadable. No obligations, she repeated. He tried to smile. That's what freedom means, right? She didn't answer. At first, then she stepped closer, and gently took the bag from his hand and set it down. I don't want a clean start, she said. I want this one. Jared blinked. You're sure? She nodded. I'm not here because someone dropped me off. I'm not staying because someone paid. I'm here because you never asked for anything and still gave me everything. I didn't do that much. You did enough. She took his hand, and this time it wasn't trembling. That evening, they sat together by the heater again. The same place where she once curled up in silence, afraid to speak. No. She read aloud from one of his old books, stumbling over some of the human words, laughing when she messed them up. Her laughter was clumsy and uneven, but it was hers. Jared watched her from the side, a quiet warmth filling his chest. This wasn't a companion. This wasn't a contract. This was real. They made a garden together the next day. Just a small one, in the back of the cabin where sunlight hit longest. Jared showed her how to plant seed pods in nutrient soil. She showed him how virulent herbs grew in spirals, if you sang to them. He didn't believe it at first. Then he heard her hum, and the small blue sprouts turned gently toward her voice. They both laughed, and something about that moment, knees in dirt, hands touching soil, laughter carried by wind felt, like the universe finally exhaled. One night, weeks later, as stars scattered across the sky, Vika sat beside Jared outside the cabin. The air was cool. No ships, no threats, just peace. Do you ever wonder, she asked, what would have happened if you picked a different listing? Jared looked up at the stars. Every day. And I wouldn't be here, he said. Not like this, not with you. She smiled, then rested her head on his shoulder, and softly, almost like the first time they met, she whispered again, "Thank you for saving me." Jared turned to her and answered what he hadn't said before. "No, you saved me. In a universe full of war, trades, and lost souls, two people found each other in a forgotten outpost. Not through destiny, not through fate, but through kindness. And that was enough. The end. Asterisk.